Thanks for coming to a non-Microsoft session or a Microsoft conference. Today, I'm going to be talking about CoffeeScript. Is anyone hardcore JavaScript developers here? A couple of guys. Basically, CoffeeScript is a language that compiles into JavaScript. So if you've done any JavaScript work previously, which many of you haven't, CoffeeScript will address some of the pain that we've had to deal with in JavaScript. Plus, it's a nicer language than JavaScript. Just quickly, that's me up on the board. I actually didn't put who I work for, which I should have put down. I work for ANZ. I'm a quant project leader there, so I don't do too much work these days. I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm a little bit flat this morning, so don't get too close to me and you won't catch anything. I'm an ASP insider and a Telegram insider, which just means that when I come to conferences like this, I can give away some cool prizes. So today I've actually got 2 prizes to give away. The second one was only given to me yesterday, so I haven't had time to update the slides. But basically we've got a Telerik DevCraft package. I think this is worth about $1,500 US. All the cool stuff in DevCraft is up there. I'm not even going to bother reading it. The guys at Mindscape, who are a local company in Wellington, are going to be demoing some of their products. They have given me a 16 gig USB key, and it's got some software on there, so I think it's some pretty cool stuff on there, a couple $100 worth there. So if you want to be in it, just put your business card up here, and at the end of the talk we'll just pick some names out of the hat and someone will walk away with some cool stuff. Sound good? Yep, cool. All right, so what is CoffeeScript? CoffeeScript is just a programming language that compiles into JavaScript. It's created back in 2009. I haven't looked at these slides for quite a few weeks, so I have to read some of these. Originally written in Ruby, now ported to JavaScript, so it can be run on the client and also on the server, so I'll be showing you a little bit of both. CoffeeScript relies on indentation, so there's no need to put in the squarely brackets anymore. Cleaner syntax, and it's more readable in JavaScript in my opinion, but you guys might not like that. Some reasons to learn CoffeeScript. CoffeeScript packs a big punch in a small amount of code. So you'll see up there, you can see up there, I've got most of the CoffeeScript on the left-hand side as you look at it. So we've got the CoffeeScript on the left, and that is the output JavaScript on the right. So basically, it's a little function which I don't think I've ever had to use except for a demo purpose, but basically it just converts letters in an array to uppercase. So CoffeeScript on the left, you've got like 3 lines of code. JavaScript on the right, you've got whatever, 10 lines of code. So it's just a nice visual way of seeing how cool CoffeeScript is. Another good reason to use CoffeeScript is the equality operator in JavaScript. It's really important when you use JavaScript, if you're checking for equality, not to use equals equals. You need to use equals equals equals. So that's one thing that I'm sure any JavaScript developer knows, but it's really easy to forget. So CoffeeScript uses the triple equals to do equality. So on the left we've got console.log 1 equals double quote 1, so that's false. But if we have a look at the JavaScript output, if we did 1 equals equals double quote 1, it'll be true. So you can get some pretty funky results in JavaScript if you're really not sure what you're doing. So in the bottom there, we've got the proper way of doing it in JavaScript. And also here, you'll notice the 1 is double quote 1. We'll get into some of the logical operators later, but is just another way of doing triple equals in CoffeeScript. Another cool reason to learn CoffeeScript, trying to find out if a variable has been declared in JavaScript is an absolute pain in the ass. We're being recorded today, so I have to be careful about what I say. But in JavaScript, trying to find out if something's been declared is truly a pain in the ass. So in CoffeeScript, you just append the question mark to the variable. So in this little demo, it's got if has been declared question mark, alert I have. And that's the JavaScript output. Now, I really don't want to type that if I'm just being paid to get a business application up and running. But those are some reasons why to use CoffeeScript. And CoffeeScript is pretty cool. A lot of people are using it these days, especially in Australia. I'm from Melbourne, so a lot of the Melbourne community is using CoffeeScript. I'm not exactly sure if many people in New Zealand are using it, but hopefully you will. So like I said, there's client-side and server-side CoffeeScript. So I'm just going to spend a tiny bit of time in Visual Studio today. So I'll show you how to run it on the client as well as the server. And then we're just going to go back to a simple web page so we can just get everything working. But running CoffeeScript on the client is as simple as adding some script tags, but you need to, instead of putting in text/JavaScript, let's go back, it's text/CoffeeScript. If you don't have the CoffeeScript in there, nothing will get compiled. The second thing you need to do is just reference the JavaScript, the CoffeeScript JavaScript library, which can be downloaded through their CDN. And as you saw on the next slide, we'll just go and have a quick demo of how to do that. Just have to remember what session I'm in. Client demo. Should have probably opened this up before, shouldn't I? All right. Waiting. I've got an SSD in this thing and it's still incredibly slow. Was anyone here for the sessions yesterday? Just out of interest? A lot of people had demo failures, video driver failures yesterday, so fingers crossed mine doesn't come into that. But if we have a look at the default page. So can you guys see that? Will I do the text a little bit bigger? Auto hide. So basically on here we've got, if I run this now, text/JavaScript, that won't work. So if I put in there CoffeeScript, and I save that and run that now, it's just going to come up and do a little alert, hello. So that's a really simple way of doing it. So if you want to do CoffeeScript in the browser, that's one way of doing it. CoffeeScript originated from Ruby, so if you're running Node.js, you can install Node.js in the server and run it that way. This is just showing you how to use it in Visual Studio. So that is CoffeeScript on the client. So I'll just go back into here. In the next slide, I'll show you exactly. Cool. CoffeeScript on the server. These guys, Mindscape, have got a wonderful product called Web Workbench, and that will give you IntelliSense inside of Visual Studio. So it'll give you IntelliSense for less and Sass. I'm doing a talk this afternoon on less and Sass. Does anyone use less and Sass? Just a couple of guys, yeah. It compiles into CSS. So that gives you IntelliSense in Visual Studio. It also, you can compile the output to be minified and obfuscated if you want. So there's a couple of cool little things you can do in there. Compiling is only in the Pro version. So they've got a free product which does everything but the minification. So if you want to pay, I think it's like $29 to get an awesome product. It's not much money, so I'll just show you that. So I'll open this one up. Waiting again. I wonder how much time is wasted just opening up products. You know, it's just amazing. Just amazing. So I'll un-auto hide that one. So basically now I've got it installed because I've got the little Mindscape tool up here. So right now I can right-click the project and I can go add. And we've got a couple of little new features here. We've got new CSS, new SCSS, less, or coffee file. So in here I can just do a normal coffee file, open it up. I don't want to open the references up. And basically I can just do like a console.log. Hello, save that. And when you save it, you'll see the little arrow appear. So you've got the normal version, which is the unminified version, or you've got the minified version, which is in there. And you get full IntelliSense in here for your coffee files. So it's a nice, if you're doing work inside Visual Studio with CoffeeScript, you need this. There are a few There are a few plugins or plugins available through NuGet. I think there's like a SAS and Coffee one, but they don't have this IntelliSense support yet. They may do in future versions, but this is cool. So Mindscape, and that's actually on this 16 gig USB key today. So yeah. No, I think it just might be the screen. No. It's just plain text, yeah, but we get full IntelliSense inside the Coffee file. Yeah. Unfortunately, I won't really show you too much of that today because most of the demos are all in just the pure web. So I didn't really want to concentrate on Studio too much, but this has got full IntelliSense for CoffeeScript, LESS, and SAS as well. Yeah. So it's a good prize to win. I've got another one to give away this afternoon. So if you don't win one now, come back and see me this afternoon. And that's it. That's CoffeeScript on the server. Really simple, guys. So the rest of the talk is just going to be a lot of PowerPoint slides and me copying code into a web browser and just showing you how the CoffeeScript runs. So just seeing the CoffeeScript in JavaScript. So just bear with me. I hate PowerPoints, but I couldn't think of any other way to do this. We're just going to be talking about some of the language elements today. So everything I'm going to show you today is the basics, but you really need to understand the basics if you want to learn CoffeeScript. I mean, that's just like any language. You can't just get in there and start doing all the hard stuff. If you don't know the simple stuff, you never get anywhere. So comments in CoffeeScript, we've got the pound sign. So we've got the single line comment. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to get out of here because, where's my view? Does anyone know how to minimize? Oh, there we go. Cool. Is that okay if you guys? I'm just going to work through PowerPoint this way because I need to copy everything in here. So CoffeeScript single line comments are the pound sign, and the multi-line comments are the triple pound sign. So in CoffeeScript, all single line comments are actually stripped from the output. So have a look in here. So this is a local version of the CoffeeScript site. So if you go to coffeescript.org, I believe it is, you can try CoffeeScript in the browser. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. So for CoffeeScript, we've got everything on the left. So this is a single line comment, single line. And there's no output on the right-hand side. But if I change this into a multi-line comment, you'll see we've got the JavaScript coming up over here. So that's a nice little feature. And that's comments. Where are we? Cool. Okay, CoffeeScript variables. So when you're working, Jesus Christ. When you're working with JavaScript, it's really important to declare all the variables with var. If you don't use var, does anyone know what happens if you don't use var? Everything is declared on the global object, which is really bad. So if you've got, if you're using multiple, third-party libraries like jQuery or something, they may have declared a variable with the same name, and you can get clashes. Doesn't often happen, but it's really important to use var. In CoffeeScript, var is there implicitly, so you haven't got to worry about using that. Declaration and assignment are split up on different lines. So if we have a look over here, so we can just start typing in name equals, I don't know, I'll just say Malcolm. So on the right-hand side, we've got the output JavaScript. So all the declarations are done in one line. So if we had multiple variables, so if we had like age equals 35, you'll see up there, everything's declared up the top. So it's what CoffeeScript tries to do is to put everything up the top so you can see what's been declared, and then you can just work with it down the bottom. Because some of the time when we do JavaScript, we declare variables here, we declare them here, and if you've got to come in and try and debug someone else's work, it can be a pain in the ass, quite frankly. So that is variable declaration. With Booleans, there's yes and no, which equate to true and false. So I'll say tall equals yes. So we've got tall equals true over there. Short equals no. We've also got on and off. So we could just say, I don't know, jump equals off, equates to false, I don't know, or hello equals on, which equates to true. You can use true or false, yeah. So CoffeeScript tries to use comprehension instead of pure code. So a lot of the loops that I'll show you today, just some of the loops are called comprehension loops. So instead of doing like a for loop, you just say, you just use basically English words to compile into CoffeeScript, to compile into JavaScript, sorry. I just need to see what my next slide is. CoffeeScript arrays, yep, CoffeeScript arrays. I haven't looked at these slides for a few weeks because we had to have them done a few weeks ago and I just haven't done anything on this since, so a bit out of shape. Arrays, CoffeeScript arrays are nice and clean to use. White space can be used instead of commas for multiple values. So we'll see over here on the left we've got an array of people called John, Pete, Bill and Wilson, and that is the output JavaScript on the right hand side. So if I copy that and come back into here, that doesn't look very, very interesting, does it? But what we can do in CoffeeScript, what we can do is take that onto a new line, do the indentation. If I don't do the indentation, you'll see we get this parser error up on the right. CoffeeScript relies on indentation. Whenever it sees something indented, it'll replace the indentation with the squiggly bracket, which is the way you do blocks in JavaScript. So indentation is key in CoffeeScript. So we can just indent that, put a new line, new line, whoop. And we've got the exact same output, but what we can do is we can get rid of the commas if we really want to. So it just makes things a little bit easier to read. And that's the exact same output. So that's how you do arrays. You can do arrays also in ranges. So if you want to do a range of numbers, so what we could do is say numbers equals, give it a square bracket, and we want to give it a range, so we could do either 0, ... to 9. So the ... in CoffeeScript means include everything as well as the last number, and we can also do a ... which means include everything but the last number. So we've given an array 0 to 9. So on the JavaScript, it finishes an 8, but if we remove one dot, it goes back to 9. If you do up to, say, I don't know, 100, instead of doing a huge number there, like we did before, so if we just do a equals, whoop. So CoffeeScript knows that if we've got a small array, it just puts the numbers in, but if we've got a large array, it does a little function and returns everything in a for loop. That's a nice little feature. So all this, what I'm really going to try to push on you guys is trying to do this in JavaScript is painful. If you want to do it in CoffeeScript, it's easier. So I'd rather work with this on the left-hand side personally than have to write that. There's also, so that's arrays. Just want to see what I'm supposed to be doing next. Oh, we've only got an hour. I think I've got enough slides to go, like 2 hours here. So CoffeeScript variables, you've seen strings, you've seen yes, no's, on and off, numbers. It's all the same stuff here. I've shown you CoffeeScript arrays. That was really, really cool. Object literals. So object literals are a must whenever you do anything in JavaScript. It's just basically a way of packaging up properties and values inside of an object and just passing that around. So in JavaScript, you've got an object literal is a variable with the equals and the squiggly bracket, and then you've got your property, and then a colon, and then the actual value. So in here, that is the JavaScript output on the right-hand side. So this is the way you normally do a lot of JavaScript work. But just like arrays, everything can be on a new line. So we can make that a new line. And that's a little bit more easy to read. But with object literals, what we can do is we can also get rid of the squiggly brackets because CoffeeScript doesn't really rely on squiggly brackets. So we can get rid of that, and we've still got everything. So it's a little more readable than a lot of things. And in like any other object in CoffeeScript, you can put an array of here. So we can, I don't know, put in kilometers. So we've got an array inside our object, literal. So object literals are a must whenever you do anything in JavaScript. And CoffeeScript just makes it bloody simple. So that is arrays. I've shown you all that. I just put this in there just so you guys could understand this and know about this. I personally don't use this because when I go into a job, I just want to get things done right and get out and get paid, and that's about it. But there's something called assignment deconstruction, where it uses pattern matching to assign multiple variables at once. So again, I don't use this, but I thought I'd just show it to you guys. We've got an array, A and B. So the array on the left has to match the array on the right. So we've got A and B equals 1 and 2. So if we have a look at the output over here, we can see the CoffeeScript again. We've got all the assignment up the top, and we've got the declaration up the top in JavaScript, and we've got all the assignment on the second line. So we've got A equals A and B, and 1 and 2. So if I do a console.log A, and I'll get everything running. So A is 1, as we'd expect, and B is 2. This is a not so nice way of doing things in CoffeeScript. I personally don't use this. But what we can also do is we can put arrays inside the values. So we've got C and D. Let's move that down a little bit. So we've got C and D. So if I do a console.log on C, we'll find that C is actually an array A and B, and D will be 3. So again, we can have arrays in the actual assignment. So over here, we've got an array of E and F, and E and F will be the values of 3 and 4. So if we just do a console.log E, we'll find that that's value to 3, and the same just goes on and on and on. So I can't really think of a good reason to use this, so I just wanted to throw it in there so you guys actually knew about it. That's another little feature of CoffeeScript. CoffeeScript blocks. These just group all your statements and functions. Again, indentation is key in CoffeeScript. Whenever CoffeeScript sees an indentation, it replaces it with the squiggly brackets, which is what you need. So we've got a little function down here. If width is 500, what happened then? Oh, bloody hell. Good old PowerPoint. God, I love PowerPoint. There we go. So we've got CoffeeScript on the left. So we're going if width is 500, so is again is triple equals. We're running a function called setWidth, which we haven't defined. So if I ran this, it'll just crap itself. Else set little width. So what we could do is we could put everything on the one line. So we could say if width is 500, then set width. Else set little. I think that's how you do it. So if you find it more readable on the same line, do it that way. Sorry? Can you do a ternary statement like that? CoffeeScript hasn't got the ternary operator, unfortunately, like C# or other languages. But you can. That's I think in my next slide or the next slide after that, you can use that to do a ternary operator. Where are we? Yeah. Nested blocks are just the same. Indentation, indentation, indentation. So if I just copy this, and it hasn't capitalized the else. Thank God for that. So if the width is 500, just doing a while true set width, otherwise set little width. And over here you can see the output JavaScript. So again, I'm just going to bang this into your head. it's a lot easier to read than JavaScript and a lot less code. So that's just blocks. Where are we? The ifs. So they've got conditional ifs. So if you don't want to do if you don't want to have the actual statement after your if, you can put the statement at the beginning of the if. So again, might be a bit more easy to read. So set width if the width is 500. So instead of going if width is 500, then do this, you can have that at the start of your if statement. So a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier to read. I'm not sure, to be honest. I've never done that. Let's try that. I don't even know. Help. Oh, it's turned. Wow, bloody hell. Yeah, actually. There you go. In the wow, in the documentation they say you can't do a ternary operator, but it's not quite. But it's yeah, that's getting along that way. If I had a prize, I'd give you a prize. But actually, you know what? You can just have this. That's the DevCraft Telerik, DevCraft completion software suite. So we've still got the Mindscape one to give away, guys. So that's a lot of money there as well. So again, you can have the actual statement in front of your if you want. So conversely, there's also a unless. So unless is just the opposite of if. So you can say, unless I'm engine, start running. So we can have something like this. So it might be a little bit easy to read. Unless is just the opposite of if. So it's just another CoffeeScript function. Or we could all put it on the one line, as we saw before. So start running unless I'm injured. So comprehension, English, that's what we're trying to get across. The ternary operator, well, we can see it's sort of possible. So the ternary operator just returns one or two results depending on the Boolean value. CoffeeScript, as far as I knew, or as far as I know, doesn't really have a ternary operator, but we've just seen it sort of does. So in JavaScript, we've got like status is, if I'm happy, I'm smiling, otherwise I'm sad. So in CoffeeScript, we can do something similar. So status, if happy, then smiling, else sad. But if we want to have something like this, where are we? We can have a nested if as well. And again, on the right, we've got the JavaScript, so we've got the declaration on the top, assignment down the bottom. So CoffeeScript loops. So I was talking about comprehension. CoffeeScript has like the traditional while loop. Most languages do. So while loops are actually expressions. So you can actually do return the value of the array that you're in back to a calling function. Otherwise, you can just process it inside the loop. So we've got this function here. So I'll just show you how to use a simple while loop. So while 1 is less than 10, just do a console.log and then add 1 to I. Nothing really fancy there, but we've got our JavaScript on the right. But if we have a look at, actually no, I think I wanted to show you something else. Yeah, there it is, sorry. Over on the right-hand side. So we've got a couple of functions here. So I just wanted to show you that the while loop is actually an expression. So we can return the value inside of the loop. So we've just got an array of ABCD, and while I'm going to go through that array, I'm just going to do a pop, which is just removing the last element from the array, and I'm going to pass that back into the variable letter, and I'm just going to do a console.log letter. So we can see if we run this, we've actually returned the current value in the array back to the calling function. So that's the expression. So we can do whatever we want with it. It'll do the console.log, then it'll go back into the loop, remove it, and then start again. So sort of kind of like, I think it's kind of like the yield keyword in C#, something like that. But everything's an expression. So CoffeeScript has the until loop. So they're exactly like the while loops. So in here, again, we can see how little CoffeeScript we need to write in order to get a bunch of JavaScript happening over there. So in this example, we've just got a total is 1. So until total is 10, just keep adding 1 to the total and return that into the variable number and just do a console.log. So over here on the right, we've got a little bit of JavaScript in here. So a lot of JavaScript, I should say, a little bit of CoffeeScript. So if we run this now, everyone knows what's going to happen. It's just going to return an array. So that's pretty cool. So this is the comprehension loop I was talking before. So CoffeeScript, again, tries to use comprehension English words rather than like a pure programming style. It compiles into the traditional for loop. Again, like while loops and until loops, this is just an expression, so we can return the actual value inside the array back to something. We can do some work and come back into the array. So we've just got the little numbers here. So in CoffeeScript, for like a comprehension loop, you actually have your the statement. So I want to do a console.log n. So n is just the variable inside of my for loop, or my comprehension loop, sorry. And it's just for n in numbers. That's just going to run, it's going to print out some numbers down the right. And over here on the right-hand side, we've got the traditional JavaScript. So what we can do, I wasn't going to do this, but I will. You can, I think you can do stuff like this when n is 1. So I think if that runs, that will actually only return a 1. So it's just a nice little way of going through. There's a lot you can do with for loops. I haven't got time to take you through everything, but in for loops, what we just did was, so go through every number and only print it out when n is 1. Can we do a... You know what? I don't know, because it's not actually, yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. It's not actually putting that inside of the compiled JavaScript. I'm not sure. Yeah, because you want to, as soon as you hit 1, just break out of the for loop and continue on to doing something else. I'm not sure. Maybe we could try that later. But there's a lot you can do with for loops. There is you can with for loops or comprehension loops. Sorry, I'm so used to calling them for loops just because of my programming background. We can also get the actual the index of the array. So what I've got here is I've just got an object literal. Actually, sorry, I've got an array of people. So John, Pete, Bill, Wilson. So to get the index, we simply just pass in a second variable. So we can say John is 0, Pete is 1, etc., etc. So that's a nice way if you need to work with the actual index of the array. Where are we? Also, by switching one keyword inside of a comprehension loop, you can loop over properties of an object. So I'll get rid of this. That's not supposed to be there. So we've got an object literal called car with a make, a Ford, and a model of Falcon. So again, this is my statement. I want to do a console.log. Don't worry about what this is doing. I'll get to that in a little bit later. But for A, comma B of car. So instead of in car, we're using of car. And that's just going to go through, and I'll just clear that so you can see what's happening. So if you replace in with of, that's just going to loop through the properties of an object. So conversely, if I wanted to go through the like all the properties of a window, I could just replace that with that, and that's going to go through and get a ton of information about that. So if you've got any object you want to loop through it, use of instead of in. So strings. So that little thing that you saw on the screen was actually string interpolation, which I think I'm going to go through now. Yep. Strings in CoffeeScript are special. They're very, very easy to work with. So if you've ever done like multi-line strings in JavaScript, that's an absolute pain in the ass. In CoffeeScript, it's quite simple to do. So I'm talking about string interpolation, getting off topic here. So I'm just going to read from the slide. It's a useful feature in CoffeeScript that allows expressions to be interpolated when the string is created. They're defined by the pound squiggly bracket. So that's really the only time you really need to use squiggly brackets in CoffeeScript, is when you want to do some string interpolation. Single quotes are not interpolated. It's an important thing to remember. Only double quotes are. So, and they're also borrowed from Ruby's implementation. So we've got some stuff over here. So if I run that, you'll see the output. My name is pound, squiggly bracket name, and I'm age years old. So that hasn't been interpolated because I'm doing my console log and I've only got single quotes. So if I change that to a double quote, and you'll see the JavaScript output on the right-hand side. Now that's being interpolated as the statement is being executed. So it's important to remember, if you want to do interpolation, double quotes. Double quotes are a must. Multi-line strings in JavaScript, they're bloody awful to use. In CoffeeScript, they're really, really simple to use. So I've got some CoffeeScript over here. And if I do a console log on that, we'll see that it's not very pretty. It's printed everything out in one continuous line. But over on the right-hand side, this is the way that we'd normally have to do this in JavaScript. We just have to do a backslash at the end of the line, continue writing, and on and on and on. So what we can do also in here, we can get into another feature called here docs. I think that's going to be on the next slide, I think. So here docs is a nice little feature in CoffeeScript, and that preserves the white space. So if you want to use white space in a sentence, which most people want to use, what we need to do is do 3 single quotes. And remember, this won't be interpolated, so I'm not going to do any string interpolation in this. A new line. So if we have a look at the JavaScript on the right-hand side, you'll see that it's actually appended a new line character to the end of it. So if I run this now, what we'll see is everything presented a little bit more nicely. So if I want to do some string interpolation with this, I just have to replace single quotes with double quotes. So if I wanted to just maybe declare a variable up here, age 35. I'll come in here. My age is that. And I'll clear that so you guys can see exactly what's happening. So we've interpolated the string, but also it's honoured the white space that we've got in there. So here docs is a nice little feature that some people forget about when they're using CoffeeScript, but it's really, really important if you want the text to appear as normal. And again, in JavaScript, this is painful. This is what I was doing back in bloody 1995 or whenever it was. I don't want to do that anymore. So here docs is a nice feature in CoffeeScript. So functions. Functions are the backbone of CoffeeScript, and you need to understand how this works. I'm not going to cover everything in functions. I'm only covering maybe like 50% of CoffeeScript. Sorry, I'm stumbling through this. In my talk, there's so much more to this language, but I just haven't got enough time to go through everything. Function as CoffeeScript is the dash greater than symbol. So if we have a look at that, back in here, we'll see the CoffeeScript on the right-hand side. We've got it's like an anonymous function over on the right-hand side. So what we can do is we can say, I don't know, car equals again, I'm going to start a new function, so I need to go to a new line, and I'm just going to say console.log, hello. So now I've got a function called car, so I can just call that by saying car. And there we go. So if I left off the parentheses, that should it doesn't actually know what it's trying to call. So you need to call that whenever CoffeeScript declares a function with no parameters. I think that's right. Let's have a look at my slide. There you go. So squiggly brackets. Sorry, the parentheses are required to invoke a function if it has no arguments. And again, in the function, the last statement in the function is the return keyword. So you don't have to use return in CoffeeScript. It's automatically put in there for you. So if I wanted to pass in some parameters, I should have shown you this on the other slide. What I need to do is pass them in here. So I can pass in, say, x and y. So I can just pass in here 10, 20, and I'll just write that out so you know I'm not lying about anything. So we've got 10. But CoffeeScript supports something that JavaScript doesn't, and we can assign default values to these parameters, which you can't do in JavaScript. So if I'm not going to pass in y, I can say, I don't know, y equals 33, and I don't know, x equals 44. So I'm just going to take all those out. Oh, hang on. And there we go. That's a nice feature in CoffeeScript that JavaScript simply doesn't have. Yes. So if we say, I don't know, 1. So if we have a look on the JavaScript on the right hand side, so what it's doing, it should be using the triple equals, but it's not. But we're saying if x is equal to null, then x is 44, and if y is null, then y is 35, and just doing a return console.log, blah, 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 blah. Yep. You can't override it with null? Was that the question? Does that mean? So if you want to pass in null, do you mean? So hang on, so you want to see, so what do you? I'd see what y is. Hang on, I'll do a. See what the output is there. 44 and 20. Yeah. So there you go. So all these little things that I don't do day to day. I just don't know when I get up here, and try not to look like a fool when I'm up here. But yeah, so that's default values. All right. So CoffeeScript function binding. This keyword in JavaScript is one of the most misunderstood, misused, abused keywords in all of JavaScript. So this, I'm going to read this verbatim because you have to understand that this keyword refers to the object on which the function was invoked. So that's really important to remember. So if you invoke a function and it's got this keyword, it's actually linked back to the original invocation. So if you invoke it a separate time, this will mean something else. So you have to be really, really careful when you use this in JavaScript. If a function is passed as a callback, the original value of this is replaced. And CoffeeScript, to allow for this, CoffeeScript has got something called function binding, or the fat arrow, as I call it. So basically, when you've got a bit of CoffeeScript and you pass it a CoffeeScript function, it will lose the original value of this if that's used as a callback function. So this will make more sense if I show you a demo. So over here on the left, We've got something that works, as we can see by the smiley face on there. So what we're doing is we've got an object literal, and we've got a function in here, and we're defining it by drive, and then we've got our little function arrow, and we're doing a console log. I'm driving a this.make. So if I run that now, I'm driving it forward. In CoffeeScript, I left this out of the slide, but this can be replaced with the @ symbol, and it's doing exactly the same thing. But if I pass that function as a callback function, so say I've got this, so I'm doing a set timeout. So what we're doing now is, so we're still calling car.drive, but drive, we're calling set timeout, and in set timeout, I'm going to pass a function in there. So if I ran this now, after 1 second, it's going to come back and saying, I'm driving a undefined, which is not very nice. So what's happened is what I completely expect, that this keyword has been lost because the original invocation has been lost, so it doesn't know what this.make is. So in order to get around this fact, what we need to do is replace that with the fat arrow. And if I clear this up, I'll run that, I'm driving it forward. So the fat arrow is important, and you can do this like normally. Do you guys use like jQuery here? Any jQuery developers? Yeah, this is a must whenever you work with jQuery and CoffeeScript. Like the fat arrow will just make sure that this is bound to the correct invocation. Really nice thing, but can be quite painful if you don't remember it. Yeah, I think I've just gone through that. Yep. Cool. All right, I'm a little bit early, but in conclusion, CoffeeScript packs a lot of code, packs a big punch basically, so you can do a small amount of code for a lot of JavaScript. It's more readable, it's more elegant. That's my details. If you want to, tweet me, email me, or anything like that. Has anyone got any questions? Because we've got a little bit of time. Yes, there is. I can't. If you come up here and give me your details, there is an open source website where you can paste in JavaScript and it'll compile into CoffeeScript for you. But I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But if you give me your details, I'll make sure I'll get it to you. Yeah.